Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Tom Zuck's U.S. Civil War Letters, 1865, Part 11. Victory, Peace, and Going Home. Headquarters, 3rd Division, 13th AC, Whistle, Alabama, April 17, 1865. My own darling Anna. Time again grants me the opportunity of writing, and as the claims of my dear wife are paramount to those of any other, I of course should first attend to them at every fitting opportunity. Today is an excessively hot one, and I have been puffing like a porpoise for the past 2 hours. The thought that this close atmosphere must before many hours bring a refreshing shower of rain is, to say the least, consoling. I am writing this in a cozy little room on the first floor of one of the finest houses in this pretty little village, while all around the veranda about the door are roses and myriads of other blossoms, flowering in the richest profusion. The window to my left hand is shaded by fruit trees, not in blossom, but loaded with miniature fruit of different descriptions, among which are a great many peaches, 1/4 grown. A thick pine wood starts off at the foot of the garden. The dark foliage of the evergreen pines makes a fine background for the fresher and lighter colors of the more tender species of fruit-bearing trees inside the enclosure. Among the pines are camped the regiments of the 1st Brigade. The soft notes from a splendid brass band come floating through the window from that direction. As I sat here, the thought of you and how much you would enjoy this, were this house our own home, and this room, instead of an engineer's office, our own little parlor, crossed my mind, and visions of pure content and unsullied happiness rouse in my imagination. But, there is a but. I awaken to the reality that this is only the poetry of war, for a dispatch has just come to the adjutant's office, ordering a move at noon, and we must be off and leave all our bright dreams of post-duty and ease for the weary march. Yet the consoling thought that the rebellion is about played out is worth more than all the rest that we could get in the Southern Confederacy. We have received the news of Confederate General Robert E. Lee's surrender, and also a report that General Joe Johnston had surrendered to General William Tecumseh Sherman. This as yet has not been officially announced. 200 guns, big ones too, were fired at this post yesterday in honor of General Ulysses S. Grant's victory. The boys all think now that they will get to start home in a few days, and much reason have they for thinking so, for I now know of no rebel army anywhere but the one in front of us, under command of General Nathan Bedford Forrest and Maury, and they are the fag end and tatterdemalion of the bogus Confederacy, and seem to fear us, for they run as rapidly as we advance. Sure, they have an army in Texas, but with General Grant and General Sherman loose on this side, the Father of Waters and Thomas Canby and our immense navy compressed in the Gulf Squadron, the rebel Trans-Mississippi Army will be but a short job, and then the glorious stars and stripes will once more float over a reclaimed and regenerated nation. This anticipation brings to my mind the words of that great poet and patriot, Joseph Rodman Drake. Flag of the free hearts, hope and home, thy stars have lit the welkin dome, and all thy hues were born in heaven. Forever afloat that standard sheet, where breathes the foe that falls before us, with freedom's soil beneath our feet, and freedom's banner streaming o'er us. But we are to move, and I must get things packed up, for the captain is busy, and I have it all to be done. I have it all to do alone, I think. I will get an opportunity to write again in a day or two, and then I hope to have some more important news to write. I don't think we can get a fight out of the Rebs in this part of the country anymore, and I'm quite certain if we do of the result, for they are so badly demoralized that they are of little force. The people here hail us with delight and say that they were tired of waiting for us, as everything was being destroyed by the vandal hordes of Jefferson Davis and company. Pardon this abrupt ending this time, for I don't know when I commence a letter whether I am going to have time to finish it or not. I will have to begin to write my letter between times if I want to make a whole one hereafter. Pray for me, dear Anna, and kiss my little daughter for her pa. Your ever-loving and affectionate husband, Tom. Headquarters, 3rd Division, 13th Army Corps, Mobile, Alabama, May 11th, 1865. My darling wife, your letter of the 18th of April came through yesterday, and I was very glad to get it, for this is the first I have heard from you since we left Spanish Fort on the 10th of last month. I had almost come to the conclusion that the mail was never coming up. We are now encamped 3 miles north of the city of Mobile and came here the night before last. We embarked on the fleet captured from the Rebs on the morning of the 9th, and after waiting until 1 o'clock p.m., the boat started down the Tombigbee and arrived at the wharf at 6 o'clock a.m. The distance is about 65 miles. It was a grand and inspiring sight to see our division going on the rebel boats when there was two Reb ironclads with Reb colors flying, laying alongside and looking at us. The Reb Navy will make a formal surrender to ours, Commodore Thatcher, on Saturday the 13th. I don't know where we are to go from here, but from present indications and the fact that General Kirby Smith of Texas has not surrendered, I judge that a few more days will see us on our way to Texas. If we do have to go there, that obstinate old fool will get such a tanning as he never dreamed of, for if he had surrendered, we now would be on our way home. There will be a large force sent after him and teach him manners. This is a very dull place, and the weather is almost unbearably hot, and the sooner we get away, the better I will be suited. All kinds of garden truck, blackberries, mulberries, and whortleberries are to be had in profusion, which to us northern folks who have been confined to hard bread and salt pork for a long time comes very convenient and pleasant. We don't stop to ask whose garden it is that we get things from, but when wanted we just go and take it. This is rather a novel way of marketing and quite exciting to the natives who have so nicely prepared these things for us. My consolation is, if they had not inaugurated the war, they now would not have to suffer these inconveniences. Everything here seems to be settling down, and it will not be many months before Alabama will be going along as straight and comfortable as she did before the war. For these people have learned a lesson that they will not forget, as long as the present generation lives. And now that slavery has gone by the board, the occasion for another outbreak has never a chance to come up again. All the sick soldiers in this department are as rapidly as possible being discharged from the service and sent home when their condition will justify. And the thing looks to me like a general breakup of the Army at the earliest moment possible. I am very glad that Charlie is once more at liberty, for he has had a long and I doubt not a barbarous confinement by the time this reaches you. He will be at home, and you can tell him for me that I send him my warmest congratulations on his release, and would be very happy to receive a letter from him. What has become of Will and Frank? I have not heard from them for a long time. I hope they have not forgotten me. I would have written to both of them if circumstances would have permitted, but as things have been going for the past 2 months, it has been only at long intervals that I could get the opportunity to write to you, my dear wife. While we remain here, I will try and make up for some of my past neglect, if such it can be called. I have not written to the folks in Marion, Ohio, for a long time, since we left Fort Morgan, and have not received anything from there in the meantime, only your own 2 letters. If I remember right, they are my debtors in the letter line, but I hope it may not be long before we can dispense with this mode of communication and strike glad hands around our own firesides in the dear old Buckeye State. My love to my little daughter and respects to my friends. Write to me often, dear Anna, for your letters are now the greatest treasures that meet my gaze in this far-off region. Pray for your ever-loving husband, Tom. Headquarters, 3rd Division, 13th Army Corps, Mobile, Alabama, May 29th, 1865. Darling Anna, again I avail myself of the privilege of writing to you, dear wife. Since my last letter was written, some important changes have taken place in this military department, first among which was the surrender of the rebels on the other side of the Mississippi River to General Canby. The final negotiations for terms were concluded on last Friday, the 26th, at New Orleans. As yet, the announcement has not been made officially to the troops of this command. Nevertheless, private dispatches have been received by enough to confirm beyond all doubt or cavil the fact that the last remnant of the so-called Confederacy is numbered among the things that were, and the war for the establishment of a slave oligarchy on the part of the leaders of the South forever at an end. Just before the news reached us of the surrender, an order was issued assigning the division to the field, and they expected to be on the way to Texas before this. But since the first dispatch was sent over the wires, all operations looking towards a move have been suspended, and no one seems to know what is to be done next. I am positive that some kind of a move is to be made pretty soon by a portion of the troops comprising this corps. I base my opinion on the remarks made by one of the aides-de-camp of General Steele, who was here today. He says that all troops having a longer time to serve than 10 months are to be reorganized into a corps under command of General Steele, and for the present sent to the Mexican border. He also says that troops whose term does not expire before the 1st of October next are to be used until that time for some special purpose. Those whose time is out before October 1st will soon be on the homecoming march. I don't know what authority he has for saying this, but I can't see what in the world they want to keep us any longer for, now that the war is over, and I don't believe they will. Colonel Grier, commanding our 1st Brigade, says that he has been assured from the highest authorities that before 20 days pass we will be in our own states. I don't like to believe it, for we have been fooled on that subject now for the past 6 weeks, and we do not now know anything more positive than we did then. But they can't find a pretense for keeping us much longer, nohow. I went into the city last Friday to assist the captain in organizing an engineer regiment for this corps, and we had just got nicely started when the whole thing was stopped, and the regiment of engineers ordered to be discontinued as they would have no use for them. So we packed up our things and came back to the division headquarters. This evening the report is afloat and pretty generally credited that 4 regiments of this division is to muster out of the U.S. service immediately and sent home, and first among them was the 96th OVI. As ours is the first in the division to go out if they serve out their time, it looks quite reasonable, but time will tell. The fires from the explosion the other day have not entirely subsided yet. Every day there are more houses falling in the vicinity. Dead bodies are being dragged from the ruins every day, and I should not be surprised if they would continue to find them for many weeks to come. As it is now, it is not safe to work anywhere close to the fires, for shells are bursting almost every hour, and sending portions of the debris from the fallen buildings in every direction. A good many have been injured in this way. I know you will feel provoked the way this letter is written, but dear wife, I get tired of writing, and by changing the pen to the inside of the forefinger and the second finger, I find that I can write almost twice as rapidly, and this makes a great difference when one has so much writing to do. If it don't look quite so neat, I expect to return to the company again in a few days, as this organization is to be broken up and scattered. Some of the officers have been at me to go before the examining board to be examined for the position in the Corps d'Afrique or in the engineer department as a line officer, but I positively refused. The division engineer is one of the board, and he says that he will warrant that I will get through. But I told him that I would not take a lieutenant colonel's place and be compelled to remain in the army after my time was out. What do you think of my decision? If they had given me a chance 2 or 3 years ago, I should have thanked them very much, and have been glad of the opportunity. But now that the works of these places is about to fall on those who should do it, they would like very well to shove it off again. But for my part, I have got enough of the army, and the sooner I get home, the better I shall like it. They may take their offices and do what they please with them. I have been thinking a good deal of home for the last 3 or 4 days, and the more I think of it, the more anxious I am becoming. I believe this suspense, if it lasted long, would really make me homesick. And oh, the thought of again seeing and being with my sweet darling wife. The very idea makes me so impatient that I scarcely know how to content myself. If I only knew when we would start, I could be more content to bide my time. This suspense is cruel. I expect we will be mustered out of the service down here, as the War Department at Washington have designated Mobile, New Orleans, and Vicksburg as rendezvous for the muster out of troops in this department. The regimental organizations will not be broken up until they reach their own states, where they will receive their pay and final discharge papers. This looks to me as if they wanted to swindle the soldiers of the time that it will take them to go home. It is getting late and I must stop. I must say one thing before closing, and that is that the war is over. No more fighting to do. And if some cheesecake of an officer don't trump up an excuse for a march again, the balance of our soldiering will be very easy. I wonder how those poor fellows who had not heart enough to come out and serve their country in its hour of need will feel now. I guess they will be like the man that hid under the bed while his wife killed the bear. They will say, "Didn't we do it? Didn't we wallop those southern scoundrels?" I have spent 3 years of the best part of my life in the service of my country, but I would not in any consideration change places with many a young man that I could name. I don't believe that the country in time to come will forget the services of those who went in her defense. Kiss my little pet for me and pray that I may still have the protection of the merciful God that has shielded me through all the dangers of the past 3 years. My prayers shall mingle with yours for those that I love more than life and all else. Your ever true and loving husband, Tom. Headquarters, 3rd Division, 13th AC, Mobile, Alabama, June 31st, 1865. Dear Anna, the mosquitoes are so troublesome this evening that I don't know whether they will let me write or not. Times are becoming a little more lively here for the past 2 days, and with the additional news in regard to the Mexican question. The movement of the troops and the talk about the big rebels now in the hands of the government. I think the boys here will have enough to talk about for several days to come. For my part, I confess that all these things do not interest me enough to bother my brains about. I think that I can be satisfied when I shall have served the balance of my time out. If they will only let me off then, and if they should try to hold us beyond that time, I do not know how it would go down. One thing is certain, when they once get a man in the army, there is no help for him, only to obey orders until they see fit to let him off. You will no doubt think strange of me for writing in this strain, yet I can't help it, dear wife, for I look at matters just in the following light. When I enlisted, the country was all aroused by the efforts of a few traitors who had mustered an army for the destruction of our good government. It looked to me like the duty of every true patriotic citizen to take his musket and help to protect the government that had protected him. And I, like thousands of others, came out through that kind of feeling and thinking. Now the thing is entirely changed. The power that threatened the life of the nation is destroyed, and those that wielded it are in the power of the government. The object for which we came out is fully accomplished. I cannot see why we should not be allowed to return to our positions as citizens any more. The government may decide otherwise, but I can never be able to come to any such conclusions. Whether we have to go to Mexico or not, I shall always think that our terms of service expired with the death of the rebellion. You can from this get some idea of the thoughts and feelings that bother my mind. I think there can be no man who has a proper love for home, wife, and children who can think or feel otherwise. If President Abraham Lincoln had only been permitted to have lived to the present time, I think things would wear a different look from what they do. The last letter I received from you was written just 1 month ago. I am growing impatient to see the next. Our letters are the only comfort that we have now. Many a fit of the blues do I drive away by looking over and rereading your sweet letters that I always preserve and guard with jealous care. Oh, could I but have the blessed privilege this night of clasping the dear hand and gazing into the love-beaming eyes of the author of them, I could for the time forget that I was a soldier, and forget the suffering, toil, and privations of the past 3 years. But hope, that bright star in the dreary background of my soldier existence, still says that even the brightest visions that my fancy can paint may and will be realized. This looks on paper like a lover's dream, and it really is the feeling of my inmost heart. I have learned only by being deprived of the blessings of home how deeply I am in love with them and the dear wife that makes my home a home to me. Darling Anna, don't call me boyish for this kind of writing, or that I am homesick. I feel just as I write, and God knows that I could write you in no other strain. I have not heard from Willie for some time, although I answered his letter promptly. Possibly he may not have received mine. I expect our mail is now being sent on to Brownsville, Texas, as most of the division is over there. If so, we will not get them till we get over there, too. As soon as the order comes for us to embark, I will write you a letter so that it will go from here. It will take 5 or 6 days sooner from here than from Texas. My love and a sweet kiss for my little daughter. Love to your Ma, Noni, Emma, and all the rest. Remember me ever in your prayers is the wish of your ever affectionate Tom. Well, that's the last letter Tom wrote. On July 7th, about a week later, he received an honorable discharge from the Union Army at Mobile, Alabama, and returned home to Marion, Ohio, and his family, his wife, Anna, and daughter Nettie. On August 16th, 1868, Anna gave birth to their second child, John Edwin Zuck. They called him Ed. And then on February 11th, 1870, Anna gave birth to their third child, Frank Zuck, who is my great-grandfather, their third and last child. September 11th, so that was 7 months later, Tom Zuck died in Marion, Ohio, at the age of 33. His death appeared to be related to the illness which he suffered from while in Cairo, dysentery. Now, Anna believed she could not take care of her children, and she gave them up, and Nettie went to live with a friend. Nettie eventually moved to Cleveland and became a successful career woman and made enough money to travel to Europe and Mexico. She married late in life. She was actually at one time one of Warren Harding's girlfriends in Marion, Ohio. So she was living in Marion. Warren Harding, who was elected U.S. president in 1920. Now, in 1879, Anna remarried a man named L.D. Thrall in Marysville, Ohio, her hometown. The two boys, Ed and Frank, went and lived in the Soldiers and Sailors Orphanage in Xenia, Ohio, and they grew up there. And at age 16, so when Ed was 16, that would have been 1884, he moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, and he died in Cincinnati in 1889 at age 20. Now, when Frank turned 16 in 1886, he moved to Marion, Ohio, and then he met a young woman, Frank and Lena Hecker, and they got married in 1890, and they had a large family, had 10 children. Shortly before their marriage, they went to Lakeside, Ohio, and that was the beginning of the Lakeside family reunions, which have been taking place ever since, from the Zuck extended family. And among their children was one daughter named Gertrude, and she got married to Doran Ray, and they had 3 children, including John Ray, my father. Well, that concludes today's presentation. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.